We are going to talk about pinching now. Pinching is the first way of building we're going to tackle with hand building. So I presume this will be the first hand building video you're going to watch. So we are going to talk about how to do pinching to make a sphere. So I'm starting with a pound of clay, and I am going to use my studio scale, and this will be available to you to weigh out clay. And I'm going to make two halves. So I'm going to make two pieces of clay that are a half a pound each. Just about right there. 8 ounces is a half a pound. So 2 half pounds of clay. I'm going to move my scale. So pinching is one of the more traditional clay techniques there is, and it doesn't take a lot of tools. It just takes your hands and some time and some practice. So when I pinch something, I'm going to start, and I'm making a sphere, so I'm going to start with a ball. And again, if you're going to let clay sit out, make sure you cover it with plastic. I'm going to put mine in some plastic over here. And my goal is to make 2 half spheres while I'm pinching, which means I want these to be as similar as possible, which means I need to do the same things to them. When you're doing this project, I am going to almost guarantee that you're going to need to make more than just 2 half spheres, because you are going to need to make them be as close as possible, and that takes time and practice. So I'm making this into a ball. It doesn't have to be a perfect ball because I don't want to get rid of all the moisture from this. Once I have a basic ball, I'm going to push my thumb into the center of it, and my end thickness is going to be, I want it to be about 1/4 inch. So I need to think about where my thumb is in relationship to the palm of my hand. I don't want to make it too thin and go through, but I don't need it to be super thick either. So start with that, and then I'm going to start to move around and squeeze that clay between the fingers of my hand and the thumb of the same hand, and start rotating the clay around and just squeezing. And we're going for a spherical, a half sphere shape that is 1/4 inch thick. So my job is to continue pinching, and I don't necessarily just want, if I just pinch out, it's just going to walk out and be open. What I need to do is also bring it up and out to make it a spherical shape. So when I pinch, I don't just pinch out, but I kind of move the clay upwards as well, and in, because when we do hand building, or really anything, throwing as well, the clay just loves to open up. It's really pretty easy to make the clay open up. It's harder to keep it closed or going upwards. So my job is to pinch and move up and in rather than out. I'm going to keep doing that all the way around here. I'm moving up the side of the piece as I go. I need to be careful not to thin out the lip too much, because I need a place to attach. I also want to try to keep that lip fairly even. I don't want to end up with a lot of craggy, different thicknesses, different heights. I can always trim it down, but if you can keep it from getting too off when you're building, then it's a lot easier. So right now, I'm moving the sides up. This isn't really a sphere yet, right? But I've also got a lot of extra clay down at the bottom that I'm going to move with my thumb. I'm going to place this in my hand, and I'm going to move the clay with my thumb. And this way I can feel the shape of it in the palm of my other hand, which helps me shape this into more of a sphere rather than kind of wonky cup shape or tulip shape. And I can also start to feel the thickness of it down there. Try to get it to that 1/4 inch. We want it to be consistent in thickness all the way around. That helps the piece to not crack or shrink in weird ways, warp in weird ways, because everything is a consistent thickness. So I'm going on and kind of feeling the thickness of this. It's definitely around 1/4 of an inch all the way around. It's not quite a sphere, it's a little taller than a sphere. So what I'm going to do is work on the shape a little bit. Can take my small wooden rib and kind of use it like a paddle and start to paddle it down. And again, you're kind of slapping with this rather than like hitting, but you're kind of like letting it slap it. So I'm kind of rounding out that top. And my goal for a sphere is going to be, it's as tall as it is wide, right? So I could take a ruler and measure the width that I've made here. It's about 3.5. And I'm going to measure the height, which is a little difficult because you can't really see it all that well, but that is just around 3.5, or I'm sorry, 2.5 by 3.5, 2.5. So I apologize. So I'm looking at, this is the diameter, which would be how tall the whole thing is. So if my diameter is 3.5, then I need this to be 1 3/4 high. And right now I am at 2.5. So it's too tall. So what I'm going to do is both, I'm going to make it a little shorter by stretching out the lip, but I'm also making it a little wider. Just the simple act of opening it up makes it shorter. So by doing this, I can start to bring those measurements into alignment. Let's measure again. We've got now 3 3/4 and 2 1/4. So I need to keep going, keep opening this up. Now we've got 4 inches by 2 inches. So I've got a half sphere, more or less. Obviously it's not perfectly spherical, but I've got a half sphere that is 4 inches wide by 2 inches tall. I'm gonna use this rib and sort of get it a bit more into a spherical shape. And I want to make sure that my lip is pretty flat and stays nice and supple and flexible, the same as the rest of the clay. Sometimes the lips can get dried out from being overworked, so we want to make sure we're not overworking the lip. So there's one. So I need to make another half sphere the same dimensions. It's easy to make one thing, right? We got to make 2 that are the same. So here's my other ball of clay that I had wrapped up. I need to make another half sphere that is 2 inches tall by 4 inches wide at the widest point. I'm doing the same process. Start to walk my clay out. again, and I'm going to keep this in, even though I know I'm going to have to open it up later. It sort of keeps things under control, as if you try to pull it open too fast, it can tend to crack because you're pushing the clay beyond what its plasticity can do. So again, I'm going to do that stage where I open up the bottom and feeling it in the palm of my hand so I know how thick it is. All right. So now we need to get a little bit more level here. My lip got just a little bit disheveled, but we can work that back together because I wasn't overworking the lip, it just got a little bit bumpy. Alright, so let's see, this is obviously not a sphere yet, but I want to see kind of where I'm at measurements wise. So this is 3 3/4 by 2 1/4. So I'm closer than I was at the beginning of the last one because I kind of knew where I was going with it. So we're going to kind of shape this more into a cube with our rib. Not cube, a sphere. We're going to shape this more into a sphere with our rib. Start rounding out the bottom. And we'll start kind of shaping the sides so that they're more consistent and spherical shaped. All right, we are almost at 4. We're at 4. We're at 4 here. And let's see where we're at height-wise. We are at 2. Okay, so I've got a mostly spherical form that is 2 inches high and 4 inches wide. I'm gonna kind of work with this shape just a little bit more. Not trying to change the width or the height, just trying to change its shape a little bit, its form. Okay, so I have 2 mostly spherical, half spherical objects that are both the same diameter at the place where they'll meet, and they're both the same height, and they both have pretty flat lips that are a consistent dryness or hardness. So now we need to let these firm up. We need to let these set up to a kind of consistency that's sort of like a soft cheddar cheese, like a block of cheddar, like mild cheddar, not the nice stuff that is aged and it gets harder and has crystals in it, but you know, like mild to medium cheddar that you would be great on nachos, that kind of cheddar. That was a tangent for Wisconsin because we live in a place that it's very important. So we're going to let these firm up to that consistency, and then when they are that consistency, we're going to put them together.